Welcome back. So, in this session, we will discuss mainly the comparison of a petrol engine and a diesel engine. So, before that, already we can classify the engine of based on engine, four-stroke engine, two-stroke engine, etc. Just like we have classified based on the number of strokes as two-stroke engine, the basic difference between a we can petrol engine and any engine based on the power source, where the power is getting. The first one is we know that a petrol engine which use a petrol as a fuel, and gasoline is the another word used for petrol, especially in US and eastern states. And another engine is diesel engine which use diesel as a fuel, and other than this we have some other engines also. For example, a gas engine works on the basis of CNG, that is compressed natural gas, or methane, or hydrogen also we can use in special case. And another type of engine is dual fuel engine. What do you mean by dual fuel engine is it can run on two types of fuel. For example, some engine requires petrol for just starting only. After that, it can be run by some kerosene or some other oil. So that type of engine is known as dual fuel engine, which can run basically in two types of fuel. One will be used for starting and the other one is used for the remaining operation. And other than that, we have hybrid vehicles also, which use or combines any two power source. For example, hybrid vehicles can combine electrical energy as well as combustion of any of the fuel, or it can combine some solar energy and fuel, so etc. So if we use more than one power source, we call it as a hybrid vehicle. In the later stage, we will discuss more briefly about hybrid vehicles. So for the time being, we are concentrating on the first two engines, that is petrol engine and diesel engine. So what are the basic difference between these two engines? So before going to the difference in engine, difference in petrol engine and diesel engine, let's discuss the difference in properties of petrol and diesel. So even though these two are derived from crude oil, both petrol and diesel are derived from crude oil, the first thing we have to understand is they are entirely two different fuels. So even though it is derived from crude oil, their properties are entirely different. So what are the difference in properties? The main thing is the petrol is a highly volatile fuel, while the diesel is not volatile. So that means if you take petrol in an open container, it can easily evaporate and mix with the atmospheric air, whereas the diesel is not that much volatile, it will not evaporate easily. And the other difference in properties are density. If you compare the density of petrol and diesel, the petrol density ranges from 715 to around 718 kilogram per meter cube, whereas the density of diesel is somewhat higher. It is 850 to 875 kilogram per meter cube. So this range is given because every petrol is not the same. It's a little bit difference will be there for different manufacturers and different grade X petrol. There will be a slight difference in this property, but still you can see that diesel is a denser fuel. So its density is almost 100 kilogram per meter cube greater than petrol. You know, water density is 1000 kilogram per meter cube. So all these two are lighter than water, but diesel is on the higher side. So it is a denser fuel. So diesel is non-volatile and denser, while petrol is highly volatile and its density is comparatively less. And another property is the calorific values. What is meant by calorific value? It represents the energy content of a fuel. The energy liberated by burning 1 kilogram of a particular fuel is known as calorific value. So calorific value is the energy liberated by burning 1 kilogram of that fuel. So every fuel will have a particular calorific value. So for petrol, it is in the range of 44 to 46 megajoule per kilogram. So if you burn 1 kilogram of petrol, you will get this much energy, that is 44 to around 46, that is average it is 45 megajoule per kilogram. But diesel is little less compared to petrol. It's a range of 42 to 46. So normally it will be around 43 megajoule per kilogram. So that is about the calorific value. So calorific value of diesel is a little bit lower than that of petrol. And another important property is the flash point. It's a very important property. What do you mean by flash point? So flash point is the lowest temperature at which a air vapor mixture, a fuel vapor mixture will be ignited or flashed by introduction of a flame or spark. So that means it is the lowest temperature. So you take a fuel and you take a air and you mix that, vaporize and mix, and you introduce a spark or a flame near that, and that mixture produce or ignite a flash, a momentary flash is produced. It is known as the flash point. So that is the importance of flash point. And if you compare petrol, the flash point is less than 21 degrees Celsius. So that means even in the most of the room temperature itself, if you introduce a spark to a petrol, it will ignite immediately. Randomly it will ignite with the introduction of a spark or a flame. But diesel, if you compare diesel, the flash point is very higher, 52 degrees Celsius. So that much high temperature is required for burning of a diesel with the flame or spark. So what is the meaning of that? So that means even if you take diesel at room temperature, that is around normally around 30 degree or 32 degree, and if you place a flame or if you place a spark in diesel, it will not burn that much easily because this reason is flash point is 52 degrees Celsius. But on the other hand, if you take petrol in room temperature and you just light that with a flame or a spark, it will ignite immediately because its flash point is very less. So that is another important property of petrol and diesel, flash point. And finally we have auto ignition temperature. So what do you mean by auto ignition temperature? Auto ignition temperature is the lowest temperature at which the heated liquid vapor will self-ignite without any ignition source. So just differentiate this flash point and auto ignition temperature. Auto ignition temperature, we are not introducing any flame or spark or any other external ignition source, but we are simply increasing the temperature only. So we are increasing the temperature of petrol and diesel. That is by either external heating or by increasing pressure also we can increase temperature. And it reaches a particular value, it will automatically ignite. So that temperature is known as auto ignition temperature. It is also known as self-ignition temperature. So what is the auto ignition or self-ignition temperature of petrol? It is 280 degrees Celsius. Whereas if you take diesel, its auto ignition temperature is 210 degrees Celsius. So you see that comparison. So that means the diesel is designed for auto ignition. So diesel is particularly suited for auto ignition because its auto ignition temperature is less. So it does not require any external agency like spark or flame. We have to simply increase the temperature, and normally that is achieved by increasing the pressure of the engine. While petrol on the other hand, its auto ignition temperature is very high, 280 degree. So it is most suited for burning by an external source, that is by a spark plug. We are igniting the petrol, whereas in diesel spark plug will not work since its flash point is very high. So these two temperatures are very, very important. So you have to first understand the meaning of these two temperature and the comparison of properties of petrol and diesel. And another question that comes into your mind is why diesel is always cheaper than petrol. So you have noticed that even though the price hike continues, always the diesel is cheaper than petrol. This is a trend of difference in price rate of diesel and petrol from 2004 so we have to 2014. Reasons for this. So even though that difference, first one, you know that all these petrol, diesel, the petrol price will be always all these are derived from crude oil, the fractional distillation of crude oil. So a distillery tower like this is used, and different different temperatures are created through this reactor, and cooling takes place. So in that, gasoline or petrol is obtained from the topmost tower or topmost upper region of this distillery tower. So it requires more energy for separating petrol. So if you take diesel, it is very easy to separate diesel compared with petrol. Less energy is required. So that is the first reason. The distillation cost for petrol is more than that of diesel. And another reason is we know that where the petrol is used, the petrol is mainly used only in two-wheelers and some lighter vehicles like car, auto rickshaw, etc. While the entire public transport vehicle rely on diesel. For example, bus and lorry, etc., heavy vehicles, and the agricultural machineries, industrial machinery, etc., they are entirely run by diesel. So that means if you increase the diesel price, it is going to directly affect the common people life. But on the other hand, petrol is limited to some two-wheelers and lighter vehicles only. So the government is set the tax for diesel is lesser compared to petrol. So these two reasons contribute to the increase in price of petrol compared to diesel. So now let's discuss the difference between petrol engine and a diesel engine. So we know that petrol engine is also known as SI engine, spark ignition engine, because ignition is done with the help of a spark provided by the spark plug. Please remember in mind that petrol engine is also known as spark ignition engine, or in shortly SI engine. Similarly, diesel engine is also known as compression ignition engine, because diesel engine we are compressing the diesel to reach the auto ignition temperature. So it is also known as compression ignition engine or CA engine. So in the examination, sometimes it may be asked like that, compare the difference between SA engine and CA engine. So it is the same as petrol engine and diesel engine. The first point is the working cycle. So every engine works on the basis of some theoretical working cycle. In petrol engine, the working cycle is Otto cycle, while in diesel engine, it will be diesel cycle or dual cycle. So low speed diesel engine works on the basis of diesel cycle, while the high speed diesel engine works on the basis of dual cycle. So in the later class, we will discuss more about Otto cycle and diesel cycle. Then another difference you already discussed, the fuel is entirely different. The fuel we are using in petrol engine is mostly petrol, which is highly volatile fuel. while in diesel engine we are using diesel, which is a highly non-volatile and denser fuel. So that is the second difference. The type of fuel is different. And the most important difference is the combustion ratio. So already we have defined what is a combustion ratio: volume before combustion by volume after combustion, Vs plus Vc by Vc. So the petrol engine, the combustion ratio ranges from 6:1 to 12:1. So that is a normal combustion ratio range of a petrol engine. Whereas the diesel engine is on the higher side, that is the combustion ratio is 16:1 to 20:1. So very high combustion ratio we are using in diesel engine. This is due to the fact that diesel engine we are burning the diesel with the help of auto ignition. So to reach this auto ignition temperature, the pressure should be very high. So to achieve this high pressure, we are increasing the combustion ratio. So that is why the diesel engine combustion ratio is this much higher compared to petrol engine. And another difference is in terms of fuel intake. So in petrol engine we know that air and fuel are mixed in the carburetor before entering the suction stroke. So before entering the cylinder itself, the air and fuel is mixed outside the engine, mainly in the carburetor or in some other mechanism. So it is mixed before entering the engine cylinder. Whereas in diesel engine, initially air is sucked in the suction stroke and fuel is injected only later, that is at the end of combustion. So that is a difference in fuel intake. Petrol engine, this air fuel mixing takes place before the engine cylinder in the carburetor or by fuel injection outside the engine. Whereas in diesel engine, initially the air only is entered during the suction stroke. Only fuel is injected at the end of combustion and mixed with this air. And that is with the help of a fuel injector. So fuel injector will spray the fuel and that fuel vapor will mix with the air inside. So that takes place in the end of combustion only. So that is another important difference between petrol engine and diesel engine. And of course, ignition is entirely different. We have discussed petrol engine, the combustion is initiated by a high voltage spark produced by the spark plugs. For spark plug is used in petrol engine for initiating the high voltage spark. And since the flash point of petrol is very less, we can easily burn this petrol air mixture with the help of this spark. But on the other hand, diesel engine, no spark plug is there, but combustion takes place by auto ignition, that is by increasing the temperature to a very high value by increasing pressure. So that is the difference in ignition. This is spark ignition, this is compression ignition. Now some more differences are there, that is the weight and space. So which engine will have more weight and space for the same power? So obviously the petrol engine is lesser in weight, whereas diesel engine is high. This is due to the fact that diesel engine we know that combustion ratio very high, 16:1 to 20:1. So to withstand this much high pressure and temperature, thicker engine cylinder and thicker components are required. So the weight and space of diesel engine will be more compared to petrol engine. And similarly, thermal efficiency and fuel economy. So both are related. If efficiency is more, it will have better fuel economy. So petrol engine is having less fuel efficiency and economy, whereas diesel engine is having more efficiency and economy. Why this is? Because mainly due to the high combustion ratio. So petrol engine is working on a lower combustion ratio, whereas diesel engine works on higher combustion ratio, and efficiency is directly proportional to the combustion ratio. So as combustion ratio increases, efficiency will be more, and efficiency is more, it will result in better fuel economy. So that is why we have more economy and efficiency for diesel engine. And noise and vibration, which one will have more noise and vibration? Obviously we know that is for diesel engine. That is also due to this high combustion ratio and high pressure. Sound and vibration of this diesel engine will be more. And similarly the exhaust gas odor and smoke coming from diesel engine will be more. This is also due to the fact that the exhaust gas odor and smoke will be more for diesel engine, mainly because diesel is a heavier fuel and it will produce more carbon particles, and also nitrous oxide etc. will be more for diesel due to its high temperature. So it will be more for diesel. And you know the initial cost of petrol engine is less compared to diesel. If you compare the same car of petrol car and diesel car of the same manufacturer, the diesel car will be 1 or 1.5 lakh more price than that of petrol car. This is due to this high combustion ratio and heavy construction of diesel engine. And another difference is cold starting problem. What do you mean by cold starting problem? So if you left the engine without working for some period of time, and if you try to start it, you will experience some difficulty, and that is known as cold starting. This is mainly because the cold air will be trapped inside the engine, which will produce some difficulty in starting, and that is lesser for petrol engine, mainly because in petrol engine the air and fuel is mixed with the suction stroke itself and it is used later, but in diesel only air is compressed initially, fuel is coming in the later stage. So the cold starting problem will be more for diesel. Now an easy way to remember these points is just to compare two auto rickshaws. So you might have traveled in these two auto rickshaws. One is a Bajaj auto rickshaw, which is a smaller one. It runs on petrol and it's a petrol engine. And also you have traveled in the bigger auto rickshaws of Ape or Mahindra Alpha or Tata Ape. So this is a diesel auto rickshaw. So you can remember the comparison. So weight and space of diesel is more, noise and vibration more, initial cost is more, but efficiency is also higher for this diesel compared to this petrol. So you can compare, remember these points. Question comes into mind is consider these two. What happens if you fill diesel in a petrol engine or petrol car? So you know the cost of diesel is less or 5 rupee lesser than petrol now. So you decided to fill your petrol car with diesel. What will happen? That is the question. So just think like this. The engine is a petrol engine. So what are the peculiarities of petrol engine? The petrol engine combustion ratio is less, 6:1 to 10:1, and it is having a spark plug instead of a fuel injector. So what will happen if you fill diesel in this particular engine? You know that diesel is a very non-volatile and heavier fuel compared to petrol, and it will not be ignited by a spark coming from the spark plug. So already know the flash point of diesel is higher and it is highly denser fuel compared to petrol. So even if the spark plug gives a spark, it will not initiate combustion because you are using the diesel. And the combustion ratio is very less, therefore auto ignition also will not take place. So the engine is a petrol engine, it is designed for petrol. So its combustion ratio is very less, 6:1 to 10:1, and in that combustion ratio you will not auto ignite diesel. So what happens is finally the engine will not start at all. So ignition will not take place. That means the power will not be produced and it will not start at all. So if you fill a diesel into a petrol car, this will happen due to these reasons. Now what if the reverse takes place? That is what happens if you fill petrol in a diesel car. So our car is diesel, it's a diesel engine and you are filling petrol into that. So what is the peculiarity of diesel engine? Diesel engines, you know, the combustion ratio is very high, 16:20:1, but there will be no spark plug. Instead of fuel injector will be there. But petrol will auto ignite because due to this very high combustion ratio, you know that this will produce a very high pressure and temperature. So you can burn petrol, but the problem is knocking will happen. Knocking or detonation is an abnormal combustion. Since petrol is not designed for auto ignition, burning by auto ignition, if you try to burn petrol with high combustion ratio, knocking will happen. So knocking is an abnormal combustion which will reduce the power of the engine. So ultimately the engine will start, but the power will be considerably reduced due to knocking. So this is what happens if you fill petrol in a diesel car. The engine will start, but the power will be reduced due to knocking. And why knocking happens is high combustion ratio. The high combustion ratio results in auto ignition of petrol. But petrol is not designed for auto ignition, it is designed for spark ignition. So ultimately the power will be less. And finally, you will meet this situation sooner or later. You suppose you want to purchase a car, you have enough money, you got a job after this BTech course and you want to purchase a car. So which car you will prefer? Petrol car or diesel car? Almost all the manufacturers are providing petrol variant as well as diesel variant of their engine. But which one will you prefer? You already know the comparison, know what are the pros and cons of these. So which one will you prefer? You know the advantage of diesel. It is having high efficiency, high mileage, but it's something, it will be heavier and it will noise, vibration, etc. will be more. And the main thing is the initial cost. We discussed that initial cost of a petrol car is lesser than that of diesel car. If you take Swift, Maruti Swift, the Swift diesel will be 1 to 1.5 lakh more price than that of the petrol Swift. So that depends. So this money, how will you want to negotiate this cost in initial cost is by the increase in mileage and reduced price of diesel. So this will depend on the how many kilometers you are driving the car. So if you are not driving your car often, you are just driving a few kilometers only per day, it's better to go for a petrol car because its initial cost is less and it is smoother than the diesel variant. Its noise and vibration etc. will be less. But if you are a frequent driver, you are running your car for long kilometers in every week, it will be better to go for diesel because you can easily balance these initial costs with the increase in mileage and the reduction in diesel price. So in the description box one video is given for this numerical comparison of petrol and diesel car. So anyone interested can watch this. Also a video is available for animation of this difference in petrol and diesel. So you can watch that also. Thank you.